I'm Yash Dhingra. I'm a scientist B in Indian Computer Emergency Response Team. And today we are going to talk about mobile security. And this is an introduction. I'll be covering some of the basics and some basic best practices about mobile security. Along with that, I'm also going to demonstrate two case studies that we have recently looked at. And some of you might have actually heard about these incidents in the newspapers, or some of you might have actually been part of these incidents as well. So it will be really interesting. So let's just start with the presentation quickly. So again, just like my previous session, I'm going to talk about some current trends in the mobile security domain. And I think I mentioned this yesterday also. Fake Arogya Setu applications were spotted when the government announced the actual Arogya Setu application on the App Store and Play Store. So these were basically designed to spy on defense personnel, and they took different kinds of permissions. We are going to talk about what permissions are in the next few slides, but they took the contacts permission, the location permission, and several other permission from the users, and then they used to start taking all that data and basically put it onto a hostile country's server. So that's what was happening in this particular case. And all these applications were being spread through WhatsApp messages in most cases. And the user or the victim would actually get an SMS saying that it is mandatory to install this application, and please download the APK from so and so link. So there would be a shortened link inside the WhatsApp message, and when the person clicks on that message, an APK file would be downloaded, which obviously when the person installed it starts spying on the victim. Then I'm pretty sure most of you would have heard about this, all these various applications which were banned by the government last year. So it started from June 2020, when the government banned 59 mobile applications which were deemed prejudicial to the sovereignty and security of India. So the initially 59 applications were banned, and then 47 applications which were basically different versions of these same applications were blocked after this. And then again 118 applications were blocked in September for the same reasons. Um, and then last I think in December or November, then another set of 48 applications were blocked by the government. So the reason was very simple. All these applications were taking a lot of data from the users, and they were actually putting it onto servers of hostile countries. So that's why all these applications were blocked. And then TikTok was also one of the applications which were blocked by the government. And I think we discussed this yesterday in very briefly, but it's just the same news report. The only thing is I'll talk a little bit more about it. So TikTok was actually collecting the MAC addresses of the devices onto which it was installed. So there are two kinds of addresses which are allocated to any device. One is an IP address and the other one is a MAC address. The MAC address is actually statically binded to the device, which means that it does not change. So wherever you are traveling, the MAC address would remain the same. But the IP address is actually dependent on the network. So if you're connected to your 4G network through your mobile carrier, then your IP address will be different. And if you're connected to your home Wi-Fi network or your office Wi-Fi network, then your IP address would be different. So using the IP address alone, it is very difficult to actually track the person's usage trends, and their basically how they use their mobile devices. So but if you have the MAC address of a device, you can actually use that MAC address to track the user's entire mobile device activity. So basically, if you have the MAC address, then you can get a lot of good information about how the person is using the mobile device and what he or she is searching for and doing a lot of other stuff on the mobile device. So all this information is basically collected by a lot of applications and a lot of companies so that it can actually be sold to advertising companies. Because if the advertising company knows what your behavior, what you are searching for, and what you are interested in, then they can serve you advertisements which are of your interest, and that can actually lead to higher revenues. So TikTok was actually involved in collecting MAC addresses and along with that a large amount of other data, and it was flagged by several countries, and it was also banned by a lot of countries eventually. So we have talked about permissions briefly in the last few slides. So let's just discuss what permissions are. Now, this permission model is very similar when it comes to both iOS and Android. The only thing is that Android has created some better segregations within the set of permissions, and we are going to look at these different kinds of permissions when as they are in Android. So you might have seen this screen when you have tried to install any application on your device. Both on iOS and Android, something similar would appear, and it actually lists all the set of permissions which the application would actually require to run. And you'll see that it is telling you that the application is going to read your messages, it is going to read your personal information, including your calendar, and it is going to connect to the Wi-Fi. So these basically are the set of permissions that this application is asking for. And when you click on accept, after that the application actually gets installed on your device. So this was the prevalent model in Android version 6, I guess, or 7. And after that, it has actually been changed to some extent. The change is that some of the permissions which are more dangerous and which are actually collecting user data are actually not given to you at the time of installation. These permissions are actually shown to you when you are trying to actually run the application. So we'll talk about these different kinds of permissions. The first kind of permission is the normal permission. So a normal permission is permission to access any feature or any hardware on your device which is not basically collecting any personal information of the user. So if for example the application is trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, or if the application is trying to get the time zone, or very simple permissions where no user data is involved. So in all these set of permissions, we call them normal permissions. And these are the permissions which are actually shown to you at the time of installing the application. And these permissions, once you have granted them and the application is installed, these permissions cannot be revoked. So you cannot change this setting. If you want to revoke all these permissions, basically you will have to uninstall the device, uninstall the application altogether. Then the next kind of permission are called signature permissions. So signature permissions are actually not defined by the Android ecosystem. These permissions are actually defined by some applications, proprietary applications, and these are proprietary permissions which can only be used by similar applications, which means if two applications have been created by the same developer and they have been signed by the same certificate, then both these applications can actually share certain permissions. So for example, Facebook and Instagram, they are owned by the same company, and if Instagram wants to use the login feature inside the Facebook application, then Facebook will define a signature permission inside its manifest file, and Instagram will actually declare that it wants to use this particular permission in its APK file. So once the Instagram application is installed and you have granted this signature permission, then Instagram will be able to access the login feature inside the Facebook application. So only Instagram and Facebook, or maybe WhatsApp or some other application which is signed by the same certificate of the same developer, can actually look at these permissions and use these permissions. And moving on to the next set, this is called the dangerous permissions. And these are all the permissions which can actually lead to leakage of the user's private information. So all the hardware and software permissions which actually can lead to the application getting access to your personal information are classified as dangerous permissions. And you might have seen that all these permissions actually come up when you are trying to use a particular feature while runtime. So if you are trying to run a particular application and it wants to access your contacts, then you will get this particular permission that the application wants to access your contacts, and then you need to enable this permission. Only then the application will be able to access that particular feature. So similarly, your access to your camera, access to the microphone, access to the GPS location, and access to your call logs, access to your SMS messages, all these permissions are actually classified as dangerous permission. These are actually different from normal permissions in two ways. Firstly, we have already discussed, is that you need to explicitly grant each of these permissions at runtime. Normal permissions are automatically granted when you are installing the application, and dangerous permissions need to be granted only at the runtime. And these permissions can actually be revoked as well. So if you go inside the settings page and into the applications list, when you click on each of these applications, you will be able to see the set of permissions that have already been granted to that application. And you can actually revoke each of these permissions, basically the dangerous permissions. So if you have granted the contacts permission to any application, you can actually go ahead and disable that permission, which means the application will no longer be able to access that particular feature on your device. So the last kind of permissions is called the special permissions, and these are very sensitive permissions on the device. One of these is the write settings permissions. So which means that if an application is asking you for changing the settings of your device, then it can actually modify a lot of things on your device, and it can actually cause a lot of disruption. So these settings are normally not asked for by any usual application. These are asked for by very specific few set of applications, and again these can actually be revoked, and you need to specifically go inside the settings page and enable these permissions. So if you have used launcher application on your Android device, which basically replace the home screen, in that case you will see that these launcher applications will ask you for this right side settings permission. So if any other random application is asking you for this right settings permissions, you can actually you should actually be a little suspicious about that application. So some very basic best practices. We should always check the permissions before installing an application. And if the application asks for more permissions while you're trying to use it, then you should basically deny all the permissions unless it is absolutely necessary for the functioning of the device. So you might see that in some cases, an application will ask for a feature or a permission which is not usually which should ideally not be required for its functionality. So in that case, you should always deny any such permission to the application. So for example, if a web browser is asking for permission to access your location or your camera or SMS messages randomly, then basically this should be a red flag, and immediately you should be suspicious of this particular application, and ideally you should stop using such an application. As an example, I'm pretty sure most of you would have seen or heard an application called UC Browser. It was a browser which was basically asking for a lot of permissions, and it was blocked by the government last year. So it used to ask for permission, I think, to contacts, to location, to call logs, and a lot of other permissions, although it was supposed to be a simple web browser. So it would ideally just ask for permission to access the Wi-Fi and the 4G network and nothing else. So that's why it was blocked by the government last year. And it's very important to actually check the permissions which have been granted to applications already by you. So just go inside the settings page and look at the applications list, and then just check what all permissions you have already granted. If you see there is a permission which is extra or which should not ideally be accessed by a particular application, then you can go ahead and actually disable that. So some other basic best practices, pretty much just like the previous session, keeping the operating system updated. So on Android, you will receive updates from whatever OEM has actually given the device. But on iOS, you will actually receive updates directly from Apple. So on Apple, actually, it is Apple actually as a company is more frequent and more long term when it comes to supplying the security updates to the devices. But on Android sides, there is actually a lot of fragmentation, and most of the OEMs take a long time to actually push security updates onto the devices. So there is nothing much that you can do about it other than actually going for mobile devices which are from OEMs that are more regular when it comes to supplying security updates to the software. And then again, keep your applications updated. So both Android and iOS keep pushing the notifications that so many updates to applications are available. So you should always make sure that you keep your applications updated. And I think I talked about Cam Scanner in the previous session. So it was a genuine application which was actually carrying malicious code inside it. And it was actually removed from the Play Store, and then it was actually published again when it had taken down the malicious code. So if you're not updating your application, then it is possible there might be some security issue in one of the applications that you have installed, and it might actually keep running on your phone for a long time unless you actually update it. So it's always a good practice to keep all the applications on the device updated. And the next thing is that you should install only the applications which are absolutely required. If you're not going to be using an application for a long time, then you should basically uninstall the application. So whatever application you are using, in most cases there would be a website. If you can do if you can do with it, then you can actually just go to the website and use it. Otherwise, if you want to keep the application on your device, then it should only be for applications which are actually used by you maybe once a week or at least once a month. If you're not using an application more frequently than that, then basically you should simply uninstall the application from your device. And there are certain applications which are sort of over smart in their tactics. They will call themselves memory cleaners and battery optimizers and whatnot. But all these applications actually take a lot of permissions. They have access to a lot of features on your device, but they do more harm than good. So all these memory optimizers, they will do nothing. They will simply remove all the applications from memory. And then when you open that application again, uh, your basically the phone will have to actually pull that application again from secondary storage into memory, and that actually increases your battery usage. So you should ideally just leave the memory management and battery management onto the operating system. You should not install any of these applications on your device. Again, an antivirus is an important thing to keep on your device. On iOS side, I think in most cases it will not be required because iOS does not allow applications to be installed from third-party sources. But Android does allow this kind of installation from third-party sources. Only thing is that you need to go inside the settings and enable a particular checkbox which says that allow installation from untrusted sources. So the recommendation is that you should never install applications from untrusted sources, which means you should not download APK files and install it on your devices. You should ideally stick to Play Store or some other reputed application store. And if you receive SMSs or WhatsApp messages which have links inside them, you should ideally not click on them unless you know where it is coming from. You should check the applications which have permissions to your location and your contacts and your camera, microphone. So all the dangerous permissions, basically, you should just disable for all the applications unless all these permissions are basically required for the functionality of the application. So I have actually crossed of the names of a few applications: Truecaller, UC Browser, Cam Scanner. I've already discussed about UC Browser. I've talked about Cam Scanner, and there is another application called Truecaller. I'm pretty sure most of you are actually using it, and it was initially an application which was designed to give you a heads up about the person who is calling you in case the number is not stored on your mobile device. But nowadays, this particular application actually takes up a lot of permissions, including your call logs, your contacts, your messages, your location. So it has a lot of, it actually takes a lot of user data, and it is basically taking it onto its server. That's what we assume it is doing. The only thing is, it might be a scrupulous company, it might be a good company, it may not be selling your data anywhere. I've not read the privacy policy, but there might be some fine print over there as well. But even if it is a genuine application and it is not doing anything, and it is not, even if it is not doing any harm, but still, if Truecaller suffers a data breach, and if the Truecaller's database is hacked or it is compromised by some attacker, then a lot of your data can actually come into the public domain and it can actually be leaked. And this has actually been reported earlier. So this is a news report from May 2019, wherein a researcher had claimed that 300 million Truecaller user data was actually leaked by an attacker. And it was there were some screenshots like this. You can if you can read it, then you'll see that there are some links to, at least inside the image section, you'll see that it has some links to the Truecaller website. So it was suspected that because it is data of a large number of users along with the phone numbers, the name, and some images as well, and a lot of other data. So it was actually assumed that this is the data from Truecaller, but Truecaller actually denied that it was their data. And again, last year, 2020 in May, there was another news that 4.75 crore Indian Truecaller user data was on sale on the dark web for 75,000 rupees. And this news again was actually denied by Truecaller. So that is the end of the first section. We have discussed some theoretical concepts and we have discussed some best practices. I'll just go through the chat sections to see if there are any questions, and then we'll move on to the next section. So most of the applications are asking for location permission. Why? So as I said, sir, there are a large number of applications which will ask for all these permissions, and we don't know why they ask for these permission. Some of these could be doing some data harvesting. Otherwise, it is possible that it is required for the functionality. So, for example, if you are using Zomato or if you are using any other food delivery application like Swiggy, then all these applications will actually ask you for the location permission so that they can ascertain where the delivery location is. Now, you can always deny this particular permission and you can actually manually enter your address as well. That is also a possibility. So that's why I said, if it is, unless it is absolutely required for the functionality of the application, you should always deny all these permissions. So for example, the Google Maps application or any other mapping application would actually require the location permission to ascertain your GPS location. In case of these applications, it is mandatory to give this permission, and otherwise they will not function properly. But for all the other applications, you can actually disable this particular permission. Nowadays, in both Android and iOS, there is an option to enable this permission only for one-time usage. So, for example, when you open the application and it is asking you for location permission, you can actually click on allow only once. So if you click on that button, the application will get the location permission only for that time. And then in the background, or the next time that you actually run the application, it will not be able to access your location permission. Then there is another question. One app, Samsung Pay Mini, I tried to uninstall many times, but my phone does not allow to disable or uninstall. So yes, sir, there are several such applications on Samsung and Xiaomi and all the other Chinese manufacturers also. They actually have a lot of bloatware pre-installed on their mobile devices, and there will be several such applications which are installed, and then uh, you will not be able to uninstall them. The only way is to actually disable them, but if you, that even that is not possible, then you can just go ahead and disable all the permissions that are being taken by the application. Otherwise, I would still suggest you should go for manufacturers which has the least amount of bloatware applications pre-installed. So you can pick and choose depending on that. Uh, what happens when we delete something on mobile? Where does it go? So if you are deleting an application from your mobile device, sir, then it basically is removed from, all the files are actually removed from your device. There might be some residue files, some data files which might be left behind, but in most cases the files will be deleted and the application will no longer be able to access any of the features or any of the data on your device. So what about permissions to wallet? Somebody has asked this. So wallets and other UPI applications will actually ask you for several different kinds of permissions. For example, the Bheem application will also ask you for permissions to the phone, and you will see that if you deny this particular permission, the application will not work. So for all these UPI and all these different financial applications, this particular permission is required because the developer actually needs to make sure that you are using the same SIM card on your device that as you have registered with. So if you are trying to register on the application with a particular SIM card, then it should be the same SIM card which is actually inserted inside your device. So that's why all these applications are need to make sure, and they would ask you for these kind of permissions. But you can actually go inside the settings and try to disable some of these permissions and see if the application is still functioning. If it is still working, then basically you can keep all those permissions disabled. So we are done with the questions for now. I'll just move on to the next section. These are two case studies, and this is I'll just start with the first case study. So this particular attack has actually been going on for a long time now, and the modus operandi keeps changing slightly, but this particular attack has been constantly going on for a few years now, and we believe that depending on the modus operandi, we believe that different gangs are actually active, and they are actually doing this fraudulent activity. So the first thing, it is actually a fraudulent attack related to the income tax department, and it starts off with these phishing SMS messages wherein the user is told that they need to claim some income tax refund into their account, and they need to submit a formal request, or they need to fill up a form online so that this income tax refund amount can be sent to them. So you will receive such a fraudulent message wherein there will be a shortened URL, and when you click on this particular URL, you will actually be taken to the fraudulent website of the income tax department. You can see that if you just look at the domain, it is UNIP and then something and then .com. So it is not the actual website of the income tax department. And it has a checkbox, it has a drop down. And when you click on this drop down, you'll actually see a list of different banks which are available for selection. And there is SBI, HDFC, Axis Bank, ICICI Bank. All the common banks are there. When you click on, when you actually select your bank and click on proceed, then you will be taken to the phishing page of your respective bank, and you will be asked for the user ID and password of your particular bank. When you enter your net banking username and password, you will be taken to another phishing page where it will ask you for your PAN card number, your address, PIN code, mobile number, and your Aadhaar number, your bank account number, your debit card, credit card, and your ATM PIN. Basically, all the confidential details and everything about your all your financial details they will take. And then when you click on the submit button, they will take you to another page which will say that you need to verify your mobile device in order to complete submission of this particular form. And an APK file will actually be downloaded onto your mobile device. And we're going to talk about this application in detail. So we were able to recover all these artifacts from the website, from the attacker's website, and we took a dump of the website. We were able to find out a large amount of artifacts over there, which we were able to analyze, and we were able to collate collate a large amount of information about the attackers. So you can see in this screenshot, we found this particular APK file which was being given to victims, and we did the analysis of this particular Android malware, and we found out that it was actually asking for permission to become the default SMS application on the device. So whenever an SMS would arrive, it would actually be taken up by this particular application, and then the SMS will be handled by the malware itself. So it was actually taking other permissions as well, and we'll look at some screenshots. You'll be able to see what all it was doing. So basically what this application was doing is that it was actually stealing all the OTP messages from the victims. So since the attacker actually has your net banking username and password, and the attacker also has your ATM pin, he or she also has your debit card or credit card number. So now the attacker only needs access to the OTP messages which are delivered onto your mobile device, so that he can actually complete the transactions. So that's what this application was doing. And these are the screenshots from the malicious application. You can see in the first screenshot, it has the logo of the income tax department, and it is called E_mobile. So it is in the third row. And then once you open this particular application, you'll see that it is asking for permission to change the default SMS application. Once you grant this permission, it will ask you for permission to access your contacts, and it will also ask you for reading your SMS messages. It will also ask you for reading all the accounts inside your device. So you can see that in this screenshot, we have actually reverse engineered the code of the malware, and we have found out that it is asking for these different permissions also. So basically what the application is doing, that as soon as an SMS is arriving on your mobile device, depending on the text inside the message and depending on the content of the message, the SMS message is actually being forwarded to different mobile numbers of the attacker. And you can see there are 4 different mobile numbers for 4 different kinds of messages. So all these mobile numbers were basically used for segregating the different kinds of SMS messages. So we were not able to figure out exactly how they have segregated, but we assumed that for different kinds of OTPs, like OTP for Paytm, OTP for your banking application, OTP for Amazon or something like that. So they will have different phone numbers wherein your all the OTP messages will actually be sent out. And all these SMS messages will actually be deleted from the device. So when the SMS actually arrives, it is automatically forwarded and deleted from your device. So you will never even get to know that an SMS actually has arrived on your device. So whatever transaction the attacker is doing, they will keep doing the transactions and then you will not even get to know. And all the SMSs are being forwarded, so the user only gets to know after 1 or 2 days when he or she realizes that they are not getting any SMS messages on their devices. Otherwise, there was no other signature of the application. They will not find out that something wrong is happening with the device. So this was the first case study, and I'll just talk about this second case study of fraudulent loan applications which have been doing the rounds very recently. And we have also heard about this in the last week and last month as well. So these fraudulent loan applications were actually being spread through WhatsApp SMS messages, and all these applications, the SMS will say that there is certain amount of low interest loan which has been sanctioned for you, and you need to click on a particular link to actually be able to get the loan. When you click on this link, you will be taken to this kind of a website where it will say the name of the application as Oppo Rupee or TikTok Rupee or Vivo Rupee, something of that sort. So they are using the names of famous brands and they have created fraudulent applications like this. And there is a link to the Google Play Store. It is written "Get it on Google Play Store." But when you actually click on this link, it will not take you to the Google Play Store. It will take you to another fraudulent page, and there will be a download button for an APK file. So when you download this APK file on your device, it will you can see that in the first screenshot it is asking for the camera permission. So we are assuming that they will do a lot of recordings from your camera automatically, and then it will be hosted on their on the attacker's server. And after that, it will ask you for mobile number, and maybe it will send you an OTP. Once you have given the OTP also, it will ask you for all other details. So what we have heard from this is that all these loan applications actually take access even to your contacts. And once the term of the loan is actually over, they will start calling you up and start threatening you that you need to pay the interest or the entire amount on time. Otherwise, they will do whatever to you. So basically, they'll do a lot of threatening calls, and if you're not answering their calls, or if you're saying that I'm not paying, or if something of that sort happens, then they will start calling up all the different contacts that they have accessed from your device. So they might start calling your family members and they might start threatening you as well. So in some cases, we have heard that there have been reports of even people committing suicide because of these fraudulent loan applications. So these are the list of permissions. You can see in the first row itself, it is accessing the location, it is accessing the contacts, and it is accessing the camera, it is accessing the phone permission as well. And in the last row, you'll see it is actually accessing the right settings permission as well, which we discussed is a sensitive permission. So it is taking a large amount of data from the user, and eventually they are doing a lot of fraudulent activity, and they have defrauded a large number of users. So we need to make sure that we stay away from any such applications. And that is the end of the session from my side. This is our email ID, incident at the rate of cert-in.org.in. So if you ever come across any such fraudulent applications, or if you come across any other fake emails or phishing emails or other fraudulent activity, then you can always mail it to us, and we will look at it. So I'll just go through the chat box and see if there are any further questions.